We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
President Obama, Democratic leaders have decided to bypass a formal House and Senate conference committee in order to reconcile those two health care bills. Instead, White House and Democratic leaders will hold informal, that's another word for secret, negotiations, meant to shut Republicans and the public out of the process. What a far cry from the election, when then-candidate Obama pledged to, quote, broadcast health care negotiations on C-SPAN so that the American people can see what the choices are, unquote. President Obama hasn't even made a token effort to keep his campaign promises of more openness and transparency in government. It was all just another lie that was told in order to get elected. The head of C-SPAN wrote a letter, asked Congress to, quote, open all the important negotiations, including any conference committee meetings, to electronic media coverage, unquote. When White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs was asked whether the administration would support televising the negotiations, he refused to answer, instead mumbling something about, I haven't seen the letter. That wasn't the question, Mr. Gibbs. You either support openness or you don't. The Democrats insist this is all on the up and up, with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying, quote, there's never been a more open process for any legislation, unquote. Oh, really? This is the same Nancy Pelosi who, you may recall, after becoming Speaker in 2006, promised the Democrats would have, quote, the most honest, most open, and most ethical Congress in history, unquote. Here's hoping the voters remember some of this crap when the midterm elections roll around later this year.
The question in this election is not, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The real question is, will this country be better off 4 years from now?
In the 3 years since he took office, unemployment has gone up nearly 17%.
We haven't made enough progress on the economy.
Here we are 4 years later, and they can't find a job. Why should they support him?
If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
The unemployment rate sticking at 9.1%.
There's so many people who simply don't think they're better off than they were 4 years ago. How do you convince them that they are?
Well, I don't think they're better off than they were 4 years ago.
We've lost our ambition, our imagination.
It's gotten a little soft.
Protesting Wall Street, they're also protesting the White House.
And the economy is not in
You're
better
saying
shape.
you can't wait, then why have you waited?
I didn't say change we can believe in tomorrow, not change we can believe in next week. This country can't take 4 more years of the same failed policies. It's time to try something new.
We now have over $9 trillion of debt. $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
That's why today I'm pledging to cut the deficit by half by the end of my first term in office.
You certainly didn't stop the decline when it came to the debt, as the debt has gone up. How irresponsible is it that this president has allowed America's national debt to increase by 41%?
I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that our children's future was mortgaged on another mountain of debt.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Thank you. I too, yesterday watched the president's lecture on television. Watched it again this morning just to make sure I was well informed before I came here. My reaction is twofold. One, I'm disappointed, and the other is I'm alarmed. First, I'm disappointed because America does not have a tradition of class warfare. It's never been part of our nation. In fact, one of the things that distinguishes us from the world is that Americans have never believed that you somehow have to take money away from somebody else in order to be better off. On the contrary, we've always looked to advance the cause of everyone in the belief that we can all be prosperous and in the hopes of growing our economy that way. That's the American tradition. That serves our nation well. Fortunately, you wouldn't know that from the speech yesterday. A rhetoric that, quite frankly, was deeply disappointing. The idea that if we raise taxes, as the president said, on millionaires and billionaires, raise taxes on oil companies, raise taxes on owners of private jets, that somehow is going to make a difference in America's debt in terms of having a real impact is not only misleading, I think, quite frankly, it's disappointing. It's class warfare, and it's the kind of language that you would expect from a leader of a third world country, not the President of the United States. But I'm also alarmed and worried about the speech because I think from it you can only take two things. Either the president doesn't truly understand the nature of the problem that we face, or he's decided that this is a political issue and not a policy one. I say he perhaps doesn't understand the nature of the case because, for example, he mentioned the corporate jet tax 6 different times. And yet the impact it would have is so insignificant that the White House, to this very moment, has not even been able to give an estimate of what it means in a dollar figure. Going further, by the way, it's important to note that that exact tax provision was part of the president's now infamous stimulus plan that passed in February of 2009. But the bigger problem, though, is maybe the president fundamentally doesn't understand how jobs are created. Politicians don't create jobs. U.S. senators don't create jobs. Senator Johnson pointed out jobs are created by everyday people from all walks of life that start a business or expand an existing one. And our job here in government is to make it easier for them to do that, not harder. And threatening to raise taxes, threatening to wage class warfare does not accomplish that purpose. Here's what I would suggest to the president. I would suggest that we have done this before as a people in America. Things like a simpler tax code. People around here in favor of tax reform. A simpler tax code, a manageable and sane regulatory environment. And of course, a government that doesn't spend money it doesn't have. These things have worked before, and they will work again, and I urge the president to lead us in that direction.
Wall Street ended its worst week since November 2008 when it closed on Friday, or so it thought. Now Standard & Poor's has axed the top-notch US AAA credit rating. It's an unprecedented reversal of fortune for the world's largest economy. The US now has a long-term rating of AA+. But S&P said in a statement the outlook was negative, a sign that another downgrade could come in the next 12 to 18 months. The downgrade could boost borrowing costs by $100 billion. US Treasury bonds, once viewed as the safest security in the world, are now rated lower than ones issued by countries like Britain, Germany, France. Paul Chappell.